A military development, ladies and gentlemen, is unfolding in West Africa once again. The United States of America is set to deploy 200 different new troops or soldiers to Nigeria, marking a significant expansion of American forces in the region. This move comes right after a series of powerful US airstrikes in northern Nigeria, specifically aimed at Islamic militant groups. Ladies and gentlemen, the deployment is urgent and time sensitive. It reflects a growing concern over regional security and the safety of millions of civilians in northeast Nigeria. Ladies and gentlemen, the presence of foreign troops or soldiers on African soil is a rare event, and it carries important implications not just for Nigeria but for the continent of Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, what these 200 troops are tasked to do, and of course how this will actually affect Nigeria's military, its people, and of course Africa as large, is a story that must be followed closely. Ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria, Africa's most populous country, ladies and gentlemen, is facing a prolonged challenge from the militant group in its northeast. For over 17 consecutive years, ladies and gentlemen, these groups have disrupted or interrupted communities, attacking both civilians and military convoys. This region has experienced repeated insecurity, and of course the impact stretches across the country. Nigeria's population is roughly evenly divided between Christians in the south and Muslims in the north. Both communities have been affected by ongoing violence. The government has insisted its operations target militant and of course armed groups, aiming to restore safety for all citizens. Ladies and gentlemen, the United States of America has had a military presence in Africa for decades through the African National Command. However, direct deployment of hundreds of troops or soldiers to Nigeria is rare. The initial presence involved a small US teams already working in Nigeria on intelligence and of course training missions. These new deployments, ladies and gentlemen, of 200 troops or soldiers expands that support, marking a significant increase. From a Pan-African perspective, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria's security matters to the entire continent. It is a regional powerhouse, economically and politically. Instability in Nigeria has ripple effects across West Africa, affecting trade, migration, and of course security cooperation among neighboring states or countries. Africa's leaders, regional organizations, and of course citizens have watched these developments carefully, aware of both the risks and opportunities for cooperation. West African region has a long history of military cooperation with external partners. Ladies and gentlemen, partnerships have often focused on training, on packaging, and of course intelligence sharing. This step is consistent with past collaborations, though the scale of deployment is unusual. As the story unfolds, it is very essential for Africans to stay informed. Understanding this development is key for national awareness, historical perspective, and of course regional unity. If you're actually finding this particular video very useful, please make sure that again to stick to this Pan-African community. First of all, like this video if you haven't, and please, if you are signing in for the first time, like it, subscribe, and turn on your notification bell. The deployment of 200 US troops to Nigeria is not symbolic. Each soldier will have a clear role in supporting Nigeria's military operations. They are being sent to train local forces, specifically help with intelligence gathering, and of course provide logistical support in areas affected by militant activity. This step follows a series of airstrikes by US forces in northern Nigeria on December 25, 2025, targeting groups linked to ISIS. The strikes, ladies and gentlemen, were part of a broader effort to limit the reach of these militant organizations who have been attacking military convoys and of course civilian communities. President Donald Trump, specifically has publicly stated that the Nigerian government must take stronger measures to protect its population. Whilst the US emphasized that the troops or soldiers are there for training and of course support only, the deployments reflect a shared concern over ongoing security challenges in the region. Ladies and gentlemen, these troops will actually join a small team already in Nigeria. That team has been helping with intelligence, identifying key locations, and of course coordinating with the Nigeria forces. The expanded deployment of 200 troops or soldiers allows for more structured training programs and of course better operational support. Ladies and gentlemen, from the Nigerian perspective, President Bola Tinubu administration welcomes international cooperation to enhance or intensify security. Nigeria is actively managing operations against militants or terrorists, whilst balancing sovereignty and of course the need for external expertise. The partnership with the US is limited to training and of course advisory support, avoiding direct combat involvement. Historically, ladies and gentlemen, Nigeria has worked with international partners on security issues before. This step is crucial or very essential because it addresses the immediate or instant security gap in northeast Nigeria. The training provided by US forces is expected to strengthen local military response, improve operational efficiency, and of course reduce the impact of militant activity on civilians, ladies and gentlemen. The presence of 200 US troops or soldiers in Nigeria is significant for West Africa and of course the continent of Africa. Neighboring countries or states such as Niger, Chad, and of course Cameroon have long faced cross-border threats from militant or terrorist groups. Strengthening Nigeria's military indirectly supports regional stability. Nigeria has historically been a key player in ECOWAS, that is Economic Community of West African States, ladies and gentlemen, peacekeeping and of course security missions. Its ability to maintain internal stability is vital for regional trade, migration, and of course governance. The new deployment allows Nigeria to enhance or intensify massively its military capability without compromising its independence or sovereignty. For the Pan-African perspective, ladies and gentlemen, foreign military support raises important lessons. Collaboration with external partners can actually provide technical expertise and of course equipment, but African nations or states retain responsibility for their own security policies. Countries such as Burkina Faso and of course Mali have faced similar security challenges, leading to balance sovereignty with assistance from international allies. Leaders involved in this development play distinct roles, ladies and gentlemen. President Bola Tinubu specifically oversees Nigeria's internal coordinations and of course ensures the troops or soldiers operate within national frameworks. Donald Trump, as a US president, authorizes or allows the deployment and of course emphasizes its limited advisory nature. Each step in the deployment, ladies and gentlemen, is carefully monitored to prevent escalation and of course maintain compliance with international norms. The 17th consecutive year insurgency in Nigeria's northeast, ladies and gentlemen, has shaped military and of course civilian strategies. Understanding this context is essential for appreciating why the US presence is focused on training and of course intelligence support. Both historical experience and contemporary development indicate that regional partnerships are central to achieving sustainable security. As the story continues, ladies and gentlemen, in few seconds we will actually focus on confirmed outcomes, lessons for Africa, and of course insights that all citizens can actually take from this development. So currently, the deployment of 200 US troops or soldiers is underway, supplementing the existing US team in Nigeria. The mission is focused strictly on training, intelligence, and of course advisory support. No report indicates or demonstrates US forces are directly engaging militants in combat. The Nigerian government, led by Bola Tinubu, specifically continues its internal operations in the northeast, coordinating with regional partners and of course international advisors. Boko Haram and of course ISIS West Africa province remain active, but the additional support aims to strengthen local forces' ability to respond effectively, ladies and gentlemen. Officials also confirm that this cooperation, ladies and gentlemen, is structured, limited, and of course designed to respect and honor Nigeria's sovereignty. Both governments have stressed that this step is part of long-term collaboration to enhance or intensify stability and of course reduce civilian impact from militant activity. These developments highlight several lessons for Africa. Awareness of security challenges is critical. International cooperation can actually supplement local capacity, and of course strong leadership ensures partnerships remain effective and of course respectful. But sustainable security depends on regional coordination and capable local institutions. Citizens can actually take away the importance of understanding global involvement in local affairs. Thank you so much for watching. Stay informed, share this knowledge, and of course support awareness initiatives that strengthen African development, education, and of course security. Don't forget, like, subscribe, and turn on notifications, most importantly to get notified in our next video.